I first took notice of Samson, a Tyndalston Story, when its team of former Just Cause and Mad Max developers posted a blink and you'll miss it teaser of Tyndalston itself. The city reminded me of GTA 3's Liberty City or Max Payne's New York. My first look at proper gameplay in a demo with the creative director only upped my interest, and now that I've had the chance to actually play Samson, albeit only for an all too brief hour, I'm officially amped for this gritty, grimy, run-down brawler with pseudo-open-world freedom where your heavy punch can drop bad guys in one bloody shot and you pop painkillers to stay in the fight. The setup for this 1990s set crime story sees you as Samson McCrae, fresh out of prison after eating a charge as a result of a robbery in St. Louis gone bad.
St. Louis? The f*** were you thinking, man?
Leave it, Tommy. Sam's back, that's all that matters.
Your sister, Una, pulled some strings to help keep you safe while you were inside, and she cut a deal upon your release.
You saved my life, sis.
Yeah, and you saved mine. 100 times over.
You've got to repay the money lost from the failed heist to people that will absolutely kill you both if you come even 1 cent short.
I'll feed you the jobs I find. Make sure you can chip away at that debt.
What's important to make clear up front is that Samson is not a AAA game. You'd be forgiven for thinking it was at first glance, because its Unreal Engine 5 powered visuals are quite impressive, both in terms of Samson's character model and the city of Tyndalston. Lighting has a very fluorescent-tinged yellow tint to it that you really had to live through the 90s to understand. Vehicles look great, and the city itself looks very, very lived in. But Samson doesn't have the scope of a AAA game, and that's not a complaint. It's just important to properly calibrate your expectations. The opening cutscene is not a full-blown cinematic, but a voiced-over motion comic. Plus, voice acting is so-so at best.
When you wring his neck, tell him Floyd Quintero says hello.
And this isn't a 40-plus hour open-world sandbox. Oh, you do plenty of driving around a neighborhood, and perhaps more of Tyndalston unlocks the further into the story you progress, but this is not a massive playground full of chatty NPCs and side activities. Again, this isn't a complaint, but it's important to emphasize because when you first fire up Samson, it seems like it's following a very GTA-esque playbook. But I really like the choices that Samson makes within its more limited scope.
Hold on tight.
For instance, there are numerous little things around the world to take note of and interact with, from notes and photos in your apartment to sandwich board signs you can knock over with your car in order to gain small bursts of nitro boost.
That's what I'm talking about.
It gets better. There is a progression system. The more bad guys you beat up and the more missions you complete, the more XP you earn that gets redeemed for a point in one of 4 skills. Instinct, which boosts your adrenaline. Tactics, ups your health. Aggression, increases your power. And cunning, which ups your finesse. This allows you to tailor your Samson to your preferred playstyle, whether you'd rather absorb and dish out maximum punishment in each fight, or strike quickly and frequently in order to speed up the maxing out of your adrenaline meter, at which point you can click in both thumbsticks and enjoy a brief period of dealing extra damage. Gameplay segments are split into days, and within each day are afternoon, evening, and night. I guess Samson's not a morning person. Every time the sun rises, you'll have to pay back a certain amount of your debt.
Here we go again.
In order to do that, you'll need to take various small jobs around Tyndalston. Fortunately, you've got choices each day. It's not a linear mission structure. My first job involved finding the manager of a club called Chubbs and, well, beating the crap out of it.
All right, I felt that one.
Naturally, it wasn't quite so simple. I had to worm my way through the bowels of the club first, fighting my way through his goons in the process. This mission functioned as a bit of a tutorial, allowing me to practice parries, dodges, light punches, heavy punches, and triggering my adrenaline meter after I'd built up enough adrenaline during the fights. It didn't hurt Samson's chances of me loving this game when the very first dude I threw a heavy punch at dropped immediately, his face covered in his own blood. Most of the time in a game like this, guys can take an unrealistic number of hits, but not in Samson. Not everyone will hit the floor after a single punch, but the fact that it can happen not only made me feel like a badass, but it added to the underworld grittiness that is clearly oozing out of every square inch of Tyndalston. Anyway, back to the missions. As I was saying, you've got choices at each segment of the day, but each choice takes a certain amount of time, meaning you can't just do a dozen jobs in a single day in order to quickly pay down your debt and break the game. Every job, realistically, takes time. So when I was, for example, shadowing Dave the bookie, that took all afternoon of in-game time. First, I had to drive to where Dave had last been seen. Then, once I'd clocked him, I had to follow him from a safe distance, lest he recognize the tail and get spooked, triggering a mission failure, so that he'd lead me to evidence of what he was suspected of by the people that I took the job from, that Dave was playing both sides. Sure enough, I caught Dave red-handed, and then I had to square up against Dave and his associates. By the time it was done and I got paid, the day moved to evening. Some jobs can only be taken at certain times of day, and some jobs will cost you money. Like when I had to take out the cars of two guys who were avoiding my temporary employer. First, I drove to where they'd last been seen, and then both cars came flying around the corner in front of me and the chase was on. The problem was, my car was already pretty beat up from the erratic driving I'd been doing in previous jobs. So the first time I tried the mission, my pursuit led us to a freeway on-ramp, where I was able to get behind the closest of the two target cars, and then I nitro boosted directly into his rear bumper, slamming his car into the curving wall of the on-ramp and taking it out. Problem was, the bumper boost also took my pre-battered car out as well, and by the time I'd grabbed another car, the second of the two cars I was pursuing, who was already in front of me, had gotten away. On the retry, I stopped at a gas station repair shop first, spent some of my hard-earned cash, which I remind you, I needed every cent of to try and make my daily debt payment, and was then able to keep my car intact while taking out both of my four-wheeled targets. I got paid, and I headed home for the evening. But who was waiting for me? Two debt collectors. And so before I could crash on my own couch for the night, I had to bloody my knuckles one more time. Both combat and driving were a lot of fun in my 1 hour hands-on. I have no idea if Samson will ever introduce guns into the mix, but I kinda hope it doesn't. The melee combat system feels heavy in a really good way, meaning that Samson takes shots just as hard as he dishes them out. I like the mix of punches, parries, and dodging. Sure, the Batman Arkham combat arguably remains the Brawler standard, but Samson's fisticuffs are slower and more deliberate in a way that I quite enjoy. Driving, meanwhile, also has a welcome weight to it. All of the fictional cars in Samson are 90s era at the newest, given the 90s setting. Samson's own car is a 70s Chevelle-like two-door muscle car, and as such, it's no light Lotus. Are these simulation-style driving physics? Absolutely not. You have the aforementioned nitro boosts, and there's a side slam button, and of course the B button lets you pull off sick handbrake turns once you've got some practice under your belt. By the end of my hour, I had really started to get the hang of the driving and was eager to zip my way around Tyndalston some more.
I own these streets.
As you can probably tell by now, I had a fantastic time in Tyndalston. If Samson can keep its mission variety fresh, which is no small thing, I recognize, it'll go a long way towards making its campaign enjoyable over the long haul, versus the extremely fun hour that I had with it. I'm curious to see if the city opens up more as the story unfolds, and I hope the story itself is engaging enough to keep me motivated to continue playing and isn't just keep doing jobs to pay down your debt until a big climactic mission happens at the end. Samson is due out on April 8th for PC, so it won't be too long before we find out if it can keep up the good stuff it's got going for it. For more previews of the latest upcoming games, check out our final look at the anime arcade racer Screamer, as well as the grimdark bullet hell first-person shooter Luna Abyss. And for everything else in the world of video games, stick with IGN.